about this. This is something that came up the other day on a very cool podcast at Fanboy Nation.
There we go. Yep.
There was a overall question asked by the host of a cool dude called R.C. Samo. And I think he's the big shot, I'm not kidding, editor at this fanboynation.com. And he wondered how this changes the world and the way we live our lives once it's said and done. And he's asking overall in the context of science fiction and science fiction writers, because it was a sci-fi roundtable I was on with other authors from BHC Press, that's my publisher, Gary Morgenstein and Lexi Wolf and Caitlin Brooke, and we were all discussing this with this guy. And this one question out of all the stuff that I don't think I answered very well, and you can get it on YouTube, by the way. It was, I think I was answering in the moment, knee jerk, which we're prone to do in a new setting, particularly where cameras are concerned and so forth. And I wish I would have had more time to think about it. But in the intervening days, since it's been a week or so, one theme keeps coming back to me. I want to know how you guys, as I give it to you for a knee-jerk reaction unfairly, I wondered about that endlessly, and I thought about one theme that keeps coming back. I'm going to tell you how I see this changing long term, could take decades.
Okay.
But because I don't have any faith in humanity, and I think most of the dickweeds who are scared by all of this and enduring it no differently than we are going to go right back to the same stuff once they feel kind of safe again, and then they're going to want to forget it. But I wondered about a potential migration. Ray, you're going to be interested in this.
Okay. I heard my agree.
I wondered if this might not yield a move away from the places where this disease, this virus, is killing the most people, which are huge metropolitan areas. If it will frighten people enough to say, I'm done with cities. I'm going to get out. Even if I have to go to a smaller city, I want no more of this. If it will frighten people enough, because that's where they kill the most people every time. They did it in 1918. It happened where there were sort of cities when the plague obliterated a third of the population of Europe. Those were all concentrations of people. People lived close together. The cholera epidemic wasted people by the thousands in London. They were all in cesspits, right next to each other.
There would not have been a cholera epidemic without things like London, but I get your point.
True enough. Yeah, well, and the way they were eating where they shit, which was a bad idea too. But I mean, at any rate, we have people who live in cities in China where there are 20 million people in a city. They've got more than one of them.
Well, and that's what, and I agree. And this is the funny thing. I actually did a little bit of research on something like this when I was doing a few different book ideas. The problem is any disaster scenario, the absolute worst place to be is a major metropolitan area.
Absolutely.
I mean, it is an area that the only way it survives is by bringing in everything. Food, supplies. As soon as logistics stop, your city's fucked.
It's an island.
Correct.
It is literally an island unto itself. Trying to get out during any type of disaster is impossible.
Exactly. So any disaster will do.
You're dealing with a coastal city. Coastal cities are even worse because you have fewer points of exit.
Egress.
Yeah.
The biggest problem that I have seen, and when dealing with people, because I talk to them, people who live, why would you live in a city? I literally do stay far away from cities because of logistics, infrastructure, problems like that, crime. 2 points. Economic preference. That is the reason they stay. Either they live there because their job is there and it's all they know, or they just love it. It's like a herd. If you have an animal who grew up in a tight-knit herd all its life, and then you put it out in the field alone, it's going to freak out because it's so used to that closeness, that structure. There is so much available to do, options in a city. When you get to a suburb or a rural area, you feel disconnected. You go to a place like where I live right now, and you're from New York, you're going to feel like you're in the middle of a field and with nobody to talk to.
You probably are in the middle of a field, comparatively speaking.
Pizza places and
yeah,
crap.
All right,
like
so now let me play devil's advocate for just a minute. I agree with that, because you can't find a better place to be vulnerable than a city.
Yes,
it's the best place to go to get killed in a lot of different ways.
Correct.
But let's just say that, and I wondered, and I didn't have an answer. Is this going to be enough to compel people over time? Maybe it is generational. I don't know. Does this scare people enough to say, I'm going to change the way I live my life? I'm going to find another way. I know that it's economically more advantageous to stay where there is a conglomeration of people, because that's where the work is, and all that stuff is easily understood. But if they were to move out of the city, where would they go? What would they do is the most obvious question. If they tried to get out sooner than later, can you imagine a New York person in the middle of North Dakota? Never mind the cultural, but the idea that people will flee cities, because I really thought long about this, and I thought this is laughable. Even if they did, they wouldn't have the vaguest idea to do what a small town population in upper Wisconsin or Michigan or Montana or anywhere where there are people that fish and hunt and they work with their hands all the time, their ability to survive is way up here.
Yes.
A jackass from New York who doesn't have tokens for the subway, doesn't get around, and has no idea how to eat anything that isn't prepared for him or processed,
is still screwed.
They're just as dead. Is that really what we're talking about here? Is killing them long term in a different? I shouldn't laugh about that.
Let's look at this scenario. We have a scenario right now with the COVID-19 where pretty much every single white-collar company in this country has been forced to run a remote proof of concept. Literally. Trial by fire. Now, because of that, this goes one of two ways. When this all ends, companies will either go, wow, we can save money, this is feasible, we can do it, or they go, no, this sucks, we can't ever do this again. Depending on how many companies do go remote, gives credence to that answer. Because if the answer is the first one, and we get a large swell of companies who allow people to work remotely, then those people who live in cities for economic reasons will move out. Because it's far cheaper to live in, Greer, South Carolina than it is to live in New York City. And we've already seen that population spread down south. So if you're able to work a remote job, you'll move to a rural area. That'll clear out some of that city people, not all of them. I mean, if a thing like COVID-19 was the only impetus you needed to be able to remove people from a city, it would have happened 4 or 5 times over the centuries because of different viruses and disasters. Yeah. The Chicago fire would have cleared out most of the cities in this country after seeing what happened with that.
Well, wait a minute. There's a difference. No, hold on. The flu in 1918 was that was a pretty good hit. There hasn't been anything worldwide since then. Yeah. So it's I wonder who would suffer more: the people in Greer, South Carolina, who have to endure a shit ton of people coming at them from big cities, or the people in the big cities who get to Greer and other places just like it and say, shit, I got nothing to do. I have nothing for this community.
Right.
They've got nothing for me to do. And they're either going to keep on moving, which is what the Greer people would like, but they're going to start getting hungry sooner or later. They're going to have to find a way to earn a living if there isn't enough jobs for them out here in the hinterland.
Well, that's why it depends on that whole first spark. If there is a large number of companies who adopt the ability to go remote, then you are going to see people spread. If not, then you're not, because you're right, there's not a lot of jobs. And what's going to end up happening is if you get a large exodus out of the cities, then those places like Greer, South Carolina become more expensive to live, because the higher the population, the more expensive housing, the more expensive everything else. So all of a sudden, the guys who already live there, who are used to that low income cost, they're going to feel shafted because now that cost has gone up. The people coming from the cities are still saving because as far as they're concerned, prices are up here. You know, if I could
Glacia, turn the gain up on your mic again.
Yeah. I mean,
turn the gain up. Turn the gain up on your mic. I can't hear you as well.
Yeah. Well, what I was going to say is, if you take the money from your house in New York City and buy 2 houses in South Carolina, or 2 houses in Georgia, or 2 houses in North Carolina, that's a hell of a thing for you. But if enough people do that, the housing market prices go up, and the people who live there now can't afford to live there. That's going to create some animosity.
All you're doing is redefining urban sprawl.
Yeah,
you're
literally
redefining urban sprawl.
Exactly.
You're making it something that it just has a larger footprint, because now all of a sudden you don't need to be within a daily commuting distance of some sort of urbania. You just have to be within if city entertainment is a thing that is important to you, then really all you have to do is be within commuting distance to go to do something that you want to do, as opposed to having to go there 5 days a week.
Right.
Which is generally 30 and under. Anybody over 30 is not that enamored of big cities.
Well, we don't like people over 30. That's what it is. Once you get over 30, you stop liking people altogether.
Right. You like the occasional person, but not people in general.
Right.
So, all right. So then here's another one. This came up after the fact, but this is really for us. I have no idea how many books I sell, because the way my publishers' royalties are structured, it's usually 10 or 15 or 20 years later before I ever get wind of it. So
we'll figure out what's going to happen to the development of Romania before we know your fourth quarter earnings.
But you guys get almost immediate information. Since this has started, are you seeing an up, a down, or a neutral in your book sales?
Up.
No
since
kidding.
This has started, since people have sheltered in place, seen a significant uptick in book sales, and not just us. We've talked to other authors who've had the same.
Yeah.
People are buying books.
So I can feel shit. I can feel like shit if I didn't sell anything more than
I would feel like shit.
Thanks for that.
I would feel incredibly dissatisfied, but maybe not. I don't want to throw you or anybody else under the bus. I would be dissatisfied. I wouldn't feel like shit though, because you write good books.
Well, it's one of those. I think everybody all around has probably seen an uptick in sales because of this. Because everybody's stuck at home. So if you made anybody's wish list anywhere, chances are they picked up your book. Yep. Now, what this means for later, whether or not it's going to peter out our sales for a while because everybody bought the book now, I don't know. But I do know, because of the whole shelter in place, book sales have gone up.
Now, here's the thing, though, is that right now, everybody is absolutely losing their minds because they don't have things to do. Right? They are like, oh my God. And so they're doing that. They're going through their wish list and they are buying all the books and reading all the books that they always wanted to read, blah, 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 blah. Because they can, because that's their priority. Their needs are met. And so they're like, the thing I need is entertainment. So they're getting it. Now, what's going to happen in another 2 or 4 or 6 or 8 weeks when suddenly these people don't have any money because they're not working, or
a lot of people, no, that's probably, it's a good reason why some are not buying a damn thing, because they're terrified and they're hoarding their cash because nobody knows how long this goes.
Exactly. And the most prudent people are.
Yeah. And my faith in business practices in North America, well, probably the world, and I should say the world, for a long time has been, how far can we cut this crew and still function? Because nothing pisses off a business owner worse than the labor component. And I'm saying, because I don't see this going any other way. I think they will find a way to not hire people back. They're just going to point to some other guy and say, hey, I don't need to, because here's my opportunity, a legit opportunity to make a fundamental shift in the way I do business. And the fewer people I bring back, the better it is for my bottom line. Even if they're putting a noose around their stupid neck when they do it, I predict most of them will give a great big middle finger to the idea of hiring back their crew.
You're talking about spreadsheet view. Yeah, we've had that. We've had conversations like that before. People look at the spreadsheet, not the people, and they see a bottom line cost and they see it dropping. The problem is the other side of that. The overworked guys, the guys who know the job, are going to leave.
It's self-correcting.
Yeah, it is.
So where are they going to go? It's a buyer's market, no matter what. So
Yes,
just like it was in 2008. This is just worse now.
Nothing is bullish or bearish forever. It comes in a cycle.
Yep.
Will unemployment rate go through the fucking roof? Yes. Will the people who still have a job be doing two different people's jobs?
Yep.
Absolutely. Is that going to redefine a lot of the way different workplaces are? Yes.
I think I was hoping for a V-shaped curve, a V-shaped recovery, a very sharp drop and then a very rapid rise, which can happen. And I really hope that it does, but my money is on a cliff and a long dig out. And it's for that very reason. People who are not hurting from this, who make a shit ton of money just by logging onto their computer, are in control of most of the business mechanisms, and they're all cut from the same cloth. I'm not going to spend a dime if you don't force me into it. And if this doesn't force them into it, what would? I got a bad feeling about it. That's my point. I think this is going to be worse than 2008.
Oh.
I'm trying to bring this around in my head, right? This is why I've been kind of quiet, just sort of listening to you guys bounce this stuff around. And all of this is absolutely relevant in this moment and to people. I'm trying to bring this whole thing around in my mind to how this directly impacts us, authors, the authoring community, and, you know, current and would-be authors. You know, is this going to be, is this going to be a tree shake that takes a whole lot of people who are either planning on or already attempting to make this their career? Is that going to make them go, oh shit, I better go get whatever work I can get, because this I can't do
I need to go get a real job.
Is this the kind of thing that is going to do the exact opposite? Is this going to take a whole lot of people who had jobs who now suddenly don't? And, you know,
good question.
You know me, everybody's got a prologue. All of these people are going to start writing now. You know, how does this impact the writing community for we as producers within it immediately, in terms of like our own productivity, like right now, and later, like 12, 18 months from now, when everybody has a manuscript that they're trying to either query with or self-publish. God help us. I hate to be exclusive like that, but Jesus, there are already hundreds,
it's a practical question,
thousands of.
It's a practical question. I think you're exactly right.
It is, and like I've been thinking about this a lot. I'm like, you know, how many hundreds of thousands of more. This is a disparaging comment, but bullshit books are going to end up being self-published on. Seriously, all of the Kindle books ranked about 3 million and back are
Mommy's Fudge Brownies, page 26.
Yeah, Mommy's. Yeah. Yeah. So what's that going to do to us? You know, as people who are, we're artists and everything, and we produce this stuff, but ultimately this is also about work. And so
the arithmetic is not on our side. You're correct.
But first of all, writing a book is not like you just sit down and squat out a book. I mean, we know that. It's hard work. There's a lot of people who are going to start and be like, screw this. This is hard. Put it in a drawer somewhere. Yeah. Yes, there will be those who complete it and be like, I have completed a book. I am now an author. We're going to put it out. And there will be an uptick. I also think we're going to lose some indies. I also think we're going to lose some well-published, because this is shaking the economic tree across the country. Yeah. I mean, it literally
is. So at the bottom end of it, it's economics is the leavening agent, because I don't care how many books you have and how good or how bad they are. If people are in the recession of all time, they don't have discretionary money to run out and buy another new novel.
Right now, they're buying books. We get at the end of this, all of a sudden, all the luxury stuff gets pushed to the wayside for a while things settle out. But, I mean, we all know being an author is a long game.
But wait.
Go ahead.
From a business perspective.
Yeah.
You get to a point where there is a lack of extra money in the average American's pocket to be able to come up with entertainment purposes. So for me, that is when I would be literally giving my shit away.
Yeah.
This is the time to buy cheap. That's what that is. You go give, when people don't have money and they can't consume something because they don't have the ability to spend that, give it to them.
Yeah.
Give them what they want. Then later, when they can buy it, they will buy it from you because you were one of the ones that gave it to them to begin with. I know that sounds like an incredibly crude and shrewd business model.
It's the elementary school free sample of crack, you know. That's what that is.
He just called it. Addicting.
Yeah.
But wait a minute. Now, I don't have any control over freebies unless I buy them and give them away.
There you go.
Have you had such an experience when you gave stuff away?
Oh yeah, we're giving.
We gave books away this week.
What is today? Today is the second, third.
But no. I don't mean now. I mean in the past, in which you had people who you gave the book to who came back and bought later. Is that theory true?
There's an uptick in sales and rank and everything else when we give away books. Yes.
Yep. I will oftentimes give away my first,
so that they'll come by and buy the rest of them. Yep.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
More often than not, if I run freebies, it's not on the whole series; it's on the first
book. Yeah.
And
so Glace, you and I were talking about this last week, and when I was telling you about in fact, when I sent you those 3 little items, I don't remember what the other one was. Mm-hmm. You had thought about you had some ideas in your brain that were percolating. What were they? Do you remember? You were going to write them down.
You're asking Amnesia Brain to remember something from a fucking week ago. What's wrong with you?
You were supposed to write it down. You said, I'm going to write them down. You lied.
Yeah. I know I misplaced the thought before it made pen to paper. I can tell you that
I'll bet you if you looked at my email again, you'd remember.
She's doing just that right now, man.
I just pulled it up. Yeah, actually, Ray and I were talking about it right before we came on. You want to talk about the third one? Let's hear.
Oh,
shall I quote you?
One. Go ahead and quote him.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is from Rob's email. Okay. Will any of us take up the subject of pandemic in a future work? It will be beaten to death by thousands. Who's gonna do it? Blah blah blah. Is this understandable, or is this a rank and callous exercise in opportunism? Ultimately, that's the question. Is if we are going to write about this that is going on right now, is that something?
Or a pandemic themed story? It doesn't have to be about
a pandemic themed story. Are you capitalizing?
What do you think?
Off of something that people are already taking advantage of, and that's fine, because that's what some people do, that whole writing to market thing like we've talked about before.
Well,
is that acceptable as a business model, or is this something that has such a human toll that it's distasteful?
I don't think it's okay. So I don't think necessarily that it would be distasteful. I do think it would probably be a bad marketing move, because honestly, having lived through it, I'm not going to go pick up a pandemic book and read it because I just freaking lived through one. Mm-hmm. I think if they write one, that's their choice. But if they think it's going to be a bestseller, they have another thing coming. All honesty, come on.
Agreed.
You make
except
point,
for the 12-year-old who. What point? Did I make a point?
You did kind of in here that I didn't read word for word verbatim. You said that people are gonna have this thought in their head that maybe I'll be the one. Maybe I'll write the one that is, going
the new outbreak.
Yeah.
Okay, there, Michael Crichton. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Because somebody's going to, and I would be willing to bet a lot of people are going to. Maybe it's the shit writers that you referenced a while ago that will glut the hell out of the market. But even if they're quality writers, there's 2 sides to this coin. Ray's exactly right. I personally wouldn't give a dime for anything to do with a pandemic story, particularly now. I was never interested in them in the first place. I couldn't give a shit less now. But what about the kid who's 11 years old, and this isn't as deep and hitting this person as it will when that kid turns 21 and wants to, is reminded of this? Is it just simply a matter of being too soon, or is it just a shit idea? I wouldn't go anywhere near it myself.
Like
Ever.
There's enough time passed, honestly. Come on. There's enough time passed in a situation like that where you're 10 years, where you start writing a pandemic story, it's not even going to relate to this because 10 years have passed. People have short memories in general.
It would have to be so incredibly
Yes,
catastrophic
it would.
that it would have to be Spanish flu level.
Right.
You know?
But, well, I wondered if it would
per capita loss. Let's
no, I understand. What I thought would get even close to the mark would be nonfiction. Someone writing about stories that you didn't get to hear about. That's going to be interesting to some people. No differently than it's interesting that Captain Sully landed his A320 in the Hudson River. Big goddamn deal.
Captain Sully was awesome.
Captain Sully was doing what he's trained to do, like every airline pilot who's type-rated an A320. My point is, the nonfiction side of this is it may do well because it's truth. There isn't any.
If you write a true story that gives good information, it's insightful. You got.
They might make it.
They might make it. Somebody wants to read a biopsy of this. Absolutely. What happened behind the scenes? What went wrong? Why wasn't it handled better? All kinds of things like that.
Yeah, you need to find a giant.
It's like Katrina all over again.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's like the lessons learned on Katrina type thing. Those books did well because people wanted to know what the hell happened.
Yeah.
You know, why did the logistics infrastructure fail? Why could Walmart get product but FEMA couldn't? You know, all those things.
People are always interested in. People are always interested in failure, and the bigger the failure,
they are, especially if there's a hell of a human toll. Good point.
Yeah, I mean, so it's like, you may be onto something there, but I mean, like, beyond that, beyond the nonfiction may be able to sell sort of thing. Fiction, I almost wonder if fiction may end up taking if an overall genre is actually going to take a hit on this. I wonder if this sort of thing is going to have an impact on sales in like broadly post-apocalyptic books. I wonder if this sort of thing is going to make a whole bunch of people be like, that's it with the zombie apocalypse shit. I'm done. Never mind.
Okay, maybe immediately, but not long term. I mean, come on, long term, people's memories are crap anyway. People like what they like. I'm getting tired of the played out zombie books, but that's me. You know what? Another 5 years from now, vampire novels are coming back. So who's to say zombies won't be 7 years?
But that's the thing.
It's a cycle.
They are in about a half decade to decade cycle, that sort of thing. So I guess that's kind of the point, is that, you know, is this going to be the impetus for the drop in popularity of post-apocalyptic fiction?
It's a possibility.
You know?
I hope not. That's a sweet spot for me. I hope people want desperately to hear post-apocalyptic stories because I got a million.
Right, I know.
It's gonna be a whole lot of authors that are flexing out.
That's right. You know, but is this going to be, from an author standpoint, as an author, what does this mean for us? What does this mean for our market, our fan base, our peers? You know, how does this shake out? We got an economic tree shake. We're going to lose people. We're going to gain people. We're going to, right now, we got to swell in market sales. Give it another 6 months, we'll probably have a lag, and then it'll come back up, as it always does. But overall, what does that mean for us? For the long term, I don't think it's going to impact us as greatly as some people think. In the short term, I do see our sales being uncertain. And the best advice I can think to give is just stay your course, man. This is a long game.
True enough. We are the least qualified or beneficiary of changing tack right now.
Right.
Pretty much.
But
agreed.
Is that even possible, though? I mean, the given courses of any one person's life right now has changed dramatically. So let's just talk about production, right? If you had the goal of putting out a book in mid-2020, and suddenly everything has changed in your life, and so the only thing that you can do to make money is to drive for DoorDash, and so you don't have time to write that book anymore. That course can't be stayed.
Yep. It's going to happen, and there's nothing you can do to stop it.
Right.
Right.
What are you going to do at that point?
You adapt and overcome.
You
You
do.
damn sure try.
That's what all we can do.
I mean,
yeah.
but that becomes a challenge in and of itself. Just being able to figure out, you know, like with everything right now, can I even keep authoring?
Those people who are working right now, who find themselves in companies with heavy layoffs, doing 2 or 3 jobs, are not going to have as much time to write, are under financial uncertainty. So they're concentrating on those jobs right now. So yeah, there's going to be an impact to writing for the next year. I guarantee it. 2020 is not going to be as you know, full of books as it was going to be initially because of that.
Authors are not going to be as prolific.
Exactly. So we're going to have kind of a year where things slow down a bit as people get resettled. Once they're settled again, business as usual.
Well, I mean, let's also not forget that apart from the logistical difficulties that everybody is going to have in terms of just finding, not everybody, but a great many authors, I'm sure, are going to have in finding time.
Yeah.
Let's not discount the psychological and emotional impact that this is having on a lot of people.
You're right.
You start hating your life, you get depressed, you don't want to do crap. And that includes writing your book.
Absolutely, it does. I wouldn't. I have other diversions creatively that I can attack, but
I'm not feeling. Yeah, I mean,
full disclosure, I haven't the slightest interest in writing a goddamn thing right now. No. It's not because, and I'm not blaming it on COVID. It's not an exclusive, but it certainly hasn't helped. It doesn't it doesn't sort of spark me into going, oh geez, well, in the middle of this horrible pandemic, I think I'm going to go write now. It's the other way around. Writing, if it was, I wasn't terribly interested in it, and now I really got nothing, no interest. Not writing at this moment. No.
Writing is an art that requires a lot of effort.
Yeah, and you got to be in a better mood to do it.
And so you look at that and you go, okay. And but it's not like the kind of thing where you can kind of, you know, put up a canvas and fill up a palette and just start painting, and you don't really have to think about what you're doing. If you are stressed and you can't keep things attached to each other properly in your head, and you sit down and you're like, all right, I'm gonna go finish this chapter in my manuscript. No.
Doesn't work that way. And I understand it's doubtless cyclical, because I've been through this before.
Oh yeah.
I've been where I have absolutely no interest, and I've thought, you know what, I think maybe I'm going to put this down for, well, the rest of my life, because I'm tired of this shit. It's hard work. I'm not making any money. This sucks. I'm tired of it. And then after a while, that little cadence begins, and you start getting an itch, and you goof with a couple of ideas, and you think, what the heck? I'm going to check this out for a while. The next thing you know, you come back. Yeah. It's what we do. We always come back.
I mean, I've always had my routines that help me write. I go for a walk beforehand. I start thinking about the book set. You know, I get myself in the mood, so to speak. But there's always a process that I use to get there. During a time like this where you're stressed and you're tired and you got a lot of things going, that becomes harder and harder to do. So you're writing,
and your routines are actively discouraged. Stay away from people. Don't go out. Don't do the things that we would otherwise consider normal. It's a hell of a break in our.
I mean, we just had a whole conversation about how 2020 versus how 2021 is going to look. What was I planning on getting out? What's actually going to come out? What are we going to have to push off? You know, there's all kinds of things you have to look at realistically and go, okay, if you're going to try for everything you were originally going to try for, you're going to fall flat on your face. So let's reassess, figure out what's doable, and concentrate just on that. Because that's the only way you can do it.
Yeah, I mean, I know I had my eye on. 3 was a stretch goal. 2 would have made me happy. Right now, I think I might get 1 and then get the next whip in line. But I mean, it's looking like, dude, I promised my readers book 4 in the Clockmaker series in the summer of 2020, and I went, well, at least I have until September 19th. Because I was like, shit. I need all those days. This isn't going to be a July book, folks.
You know, we've
adjustments
got,
are going to be
release
made.
postponements. We got all kinds of stuff going on because everything went tits up.
Yeah, that's about it.
Everything went tits up. So everybody's trying to figure out their new schedules based on this. You know,
We'll
this
get
isn't
there.
easy for anybody. None of us are an island. None of us can sit there despite what's going on in the world and go, nope, nothing changes in my life, you know.
I haven't met a single person.
I wish I had that kind of independence, but I don't.
I know. But
okay, well, this was interesting. All right, so I think I'm a little more misanthropic than Glace. I don't know about Ray. He can be misanthropic sometime, but I say let's revisit this in 3 months' time. Let's see where we're at in 3 months. We learn as we go.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'll be here with my straitjacket.
We'll do it quarterly, 13 weeks from now.
13 weeks from now, we'll do it quarterly.
13 weeks, we'll call it the 13 weeks episode.
The 13 week update.
We've now been locked in the house for 26 weeks.
I haven't murdered a person today.
I'm kind of okay with.
When did you paint your walls brown? It's not paint.
All right, good show. Good show. We're back. We were gone for a while, but now we're back, and we haven't lost our touch after.
No, apparently not.
We have not lost our.
We have not lost our.
Just as annoying as ever.
We have not lost our. It's all over the walls. No, just kidding. That's the moment. All right, guys. Don't laugh at me.
Okay, good.
Van Gogh's farty night.
Oh,
all right. Are you adjusting?
Oh, she's adjusting.
I am.